Hello, and welcome to the Kern Organization's webcast, Deliver Stronger B2B Demand Generation Results, 8 Secrets Revealed. I'm David Azulay, VP of Client Services at the Kern Organization, and I'm responsible for overseeing strategy and account services for our B2B and our B2C clients. I manage the overall direct marketing strategic planning and implementation and provide clients with integrated cross-channel recommendations to achieve the highest response rates and ROI. My co-speaker, Verner, is the marketing director for the VeriSign SSL division, which is now part of Symantec, and Tara is responsible for worldwide lead generation, customer marketing, renewals, and loyalty. So her function spans on search, direct mail, print, online, and everything in between. Just a few housekeeping items. If you experience any technical difficulties, please let us know. You can use the Ask a Questions box or troubleshoot by clicking the Help button below. Please be sure to disable pop-up blockers, and if you cannot see the slides, if they're not moving, make sure you're on Internet Explorer. And lastly, if you have any questions that you'd like us to answer at the end, you can submit those using the box Ask a Question at the bottom as well. So now I'm going to get started on today's presentation, and we're going to reveal a lot more today than 8 secrets. We'll cover some laws, trends, best practices in B2B marketing, and then we'll give you an inside view. Tara will take you through a real-world example, and we'll leave you with some rapid-fire ideas that you can implement pretty quickly. So this first slide, success requires mastering the quality and quantity balancing act. And this is an interesting picture. This is a picture that someone brought back for me from Vietnam. And it's a woman who runs a mobile dim sum business. And it really related well to what we were talking about today, in that we're going to talk about that universal balance in B2B marketing of quality versus quantity. How do we fill the sales funnel up cost effectively with quality leads, and at the same time bring in those leads that'll convert to revenue and convert quickly? Over the past 15 or so years of B2B marketing, I picked up a few universal laws, and the first one is the power law of demand generation. And this power law basically says that quantity times quality times speed will result in revenue, which will result in happy executives, and that'll give us personal job satisfaction, and in this case, job retention, which is great. So in today's market, well-cultivated leads are really the best leads that you can get. The power law of revenue generation says that hot leads are not always better than well-cultivated leads. So with well-cultivated leads, what you do is you establish a relationship, you establish trust, and you become much more valuable than what your typical hot lead is. So people buy from people, and people buy from relationships. So hot inquiries will often put you into the cannon fodder, and you end up being used to justify the purchase for these companies with their primary relationship. So instead, what we need to do is cultivate the leads, and then our chances of closing will be much, much higher. Our job as marketers is really to help our high-valued sales staff do what they do best, which is, what they really should be doing, which is to sell. Thus, what we need to do is have a pipeline of activity that builds trust with sales and keeps them from doing some of the work that's just taking up their time that we as marketers can be doing better. So we don't want them doing cold calls. We don't want them going to unqualified appointments. What we want them doing is closing deals, and we need to help them by filling the funnel in such a way that they have deals that they can actually close. My fourth law here is to become a student of Hugh McFarlane. Hugh is one of the most articulate experts, and his work in sales, leakage, and funnel calculations is critical to the planning process. He's the author of The Leaky Funnel and the founder of Math Marketing. And what Hugh does is he makes it really easy for us to determine what quantity we need to get into the top of our funnel. Then, given our leakage and our velocity, how quickly can we hit our sales targets? So I encourage you to visit his site, funnelcalculator.com or mathmarketing.com, and get to know some of his practices because they'll really help you with some of your metrics moving forward. And finally, you need to deploy an integrated front-to-back-end system that enables you to capture leads from a multitude of sources. So here, what we're looking at here is something that allows you to integrate demand generation, data and sales opportunities, and that way we can see what's required to maximize our revenue. And so at Kern, we like to call this the high-tech lead farm. The lead farm is not a product, but it's a best practice approach to automate our B2B marketing. So think about whether you currently have some form of automated marketing system installed at your business, and if so, is it generating the return that you desire? Because what we're going to look at now is a system that will really help you get the results that you're looking for. So the first part of this system is demand generation. And so there's a couple of different ways that we can generate demand. We've got our external fields, which are like search, online, offline, live and virtual events. And then we've got our external fields, and that's where customer service, technical support. And so what we're really going to look at today is some of those external fields that are going to help us bring in more of those leads. In this example, there's a benchmark survey that's used to identify trends and then someone's intent to buy. So we can do these both as offline and online programs, and they return really strong response and then lots of data on each of the inquiries that's coming in. But often the desire to buy in the short term is pretty low. So what this is doing, it's a program that's going to bring in more quantity. It's going to bring in data intelligence into our funnel, and then it'll enable us to use our automated marketing methods to nurture the leads in a relevant manner. Now here on this example, this is somewhat of a complement. It's going to help us balance out the previous program that brings in a high quantity by bringing in a little more high quality. So on this example, this is a lead gen program with content that's designed for buyers' interests in consideration and evaluation stages, and it sits within a microsite. So we can use online and offline campaigns to drive visitors into this microsite. We then can collect their behavior. We can track what they're doing, look at all their insights, and then we'll bring in a little bit more information about each of these visitors. So we'll get lower quantity, but a higher quality. So we do believe that this balanced approach together between the survey and the informational strategy would give you that Q-squared approach that we talked about earlier. The second thing that we're going to look at here as part of the demand generation is the digital body language, which is part of the tagging that will facilitate lead nurture and conversion. So in this next step, what we're trying to do is gain additional intelligence on all of our inquiries so we can understand more about them. So we're a big supporter of what we call digital body language. This is a term that we didn't coin. Eloqua has called it that for a long time. And they've made it simple to help see what the prospect is doing during a visit to our website. So if you look at this here, this is someone's digital body language, and what's included in that is everything that they're currently doing. What are they clicking on? What are they looking at? And we can combine that with some of our more classic qualitative data to give us as much information as possible about this prospect. And that leads us into our next area, which is really data management. So we just looked at demand generation. Once we bring in these inquiries and they start to become leads, what do we do with the data? So after looking at the digital body language, we then have to do some sort of advanced lead scoring that goes a little bit beyond our typical budget authority need and timeline. We have to do what we like to call advanced tagging or active tagging. So we take the supply data and then we look at what kind of questions these people have answered, what information they've given us, and by combining the passive tagging and the digital behavior, we come up with a very accurate lead score to enable us to know where to send each of these leads for follow-up, what to send the lead, and where the most relevant conversations can take place to advance us through the sales process. Okay, so we've walked through demand generation and data management, And then the third major area of the lead farm is our sales development. And the sales development consists of a few areas: inquiry nurturing, prospect qualification, and opportunity harvesting. What makes B2B such a great discipline is that we're now able to use automatic marketing or automated marketing to nurture leads with one-to-one relevant emails to advance them through our funnel. So what you see here is actually the architecture of what happens next. So when someone comes into your funnel, based on what they tell us, what are we going to do with them next? What's our next best touch point? And this is how we help drive sales velocity. So this messaging architecture for a nurturing program is a key piece of the foundation for our success. What's the next best message? What offers are you going to use to drive them deeper throughout your funnel? And now that we've got the architecture built out, the second phase of this is to use this technology to enable real-time communication. So we can actually have, as you all know, technology that can help you take these people through the next step in the communication process. And we can send them emails over a period of time as opposed to just batching and blasting them at any given time. And what this enables us to do as a marketer is to set up a campaign and let it run without us actually looking at it on a day-to-day basis. So, we're all busy. So once we set up this architecture and then we look at some sort of an automated system, everything will just happen automatically. We can put it in, and if this, then that, and these emails will get sent to these different leads, and they'll be nurtured throughout the process. So in the end, what you end up with is a multi-touch point program that will engage the prospect, nurture them along the sales cycle, and enable them to access the content that they want when they want it to facilitate their buying process. So what you see here are different touch points that were done for one of our high-tech clients. Okay, so now we've talked about best practices of B2B, the rules of B2B, the lead farm. So now it's time to hear about the realities and the challenges faced when you're trying to deliver a high-tech Q-squared program. So it's my pleasure to introduce Tara Verner, the Director of Direct Marketing and Demand Generation at Symantec, which is previously VeriSign. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Tara.
Thanks, David. It's a pleasure to be talking with you. So I wanted to start by telling you a little bit of what I do. I oversee the direct response marketing for VeriSign SSL, now part of Symantec. My work at this point in time covers branding, lead generation, and customer retention. But today what I'm going to do is talk to you about lead generation and how to balance quantity and quality in sort of my day-to-day job. Before I begin, I wanted to tell you a little bit about our business so you understand our challenges and opportunities, but also, assuming that you're interested in increasing conversion, our product does help do that, and I wanted to just make you aware of that. So what I'll specifically be covering on the lead generation point is planning, how I set the stage for balancing the quantity that I need and also making sure we've got the right quality, simple tips that I've deployed on scoring systems and features, what not to do with leads and systems, and just more thoughts on other tactics that you can use. So really quickly, I just want to tell you about what we sell. We sell VeriSign SSL certificates. They're basically internet security that encrypts data so customers shopping or logging onto sites can rest assured that their information is safe. And you basically know that that a website is safe when you see a padlock, or often the browser bar turns green, or often you'll see the VeriSign Trust Seal. And now we've also pushed that same Trust Seal out to search, so in search results you'll know that a website is safe before you start transacting. So why is the seal important? It's important to sites because it's so well recognized. Basically, 9 out of 10 users recognize the seal. It's on 90,000 websites across the world and many leading sites. And also with our new seal and search technology, the seal is actually viewed 500 million times a day. And why is that important? It's important because that recognition helps increase conversion. So we've shown that by displaying the seal on your website, or if you have landing pages or lead forms that you're trying to increase conversion on, we've shown an average increase in conversion of 24%. And that's really important because nowadays, with so much business and social interactions going online, customers more than ever need to be assured that they're dealing with the business that they think they're dealing with. So building trust is important, and I wanted to give you guys some information on an article from Tim Ash, who does a lot of landing page optimization that talks about the 4 pillars of building online trust. And essentially there's appearance, transactional assurances, expert media, and consensus of peers. Those are basically things you can do to enhance your landing pages and make sure you increase conversion. Our particular product has to do with transactional assurances. If you want to learn more about what Tim Ash has to say, I recommend you go to ClickC and find the article called 4 Pillars of Building Online Trust. So now I'd like to turn it over to talking a little bit about lead generation and balancing quantity and quality. And I want to preface my topic here by saying that I sell in 2 primary channels, direct transactional and to enterprise. And today I'm going to primarily be talking to you about the direct transactional sale, as the time to sale is under 1 month. And that's really important because I can give you in data and facts of what I know about conversion and the trade-offs between quantity and quality and how that impacts scoring, because we can measure it real time. I also want to tell you before I start that I'm in a highly competitive environment, so getting the right lead to sales quickly is important. And I know that's different because a lot of people hold back leads and nurture them, which is important when you're in a longer lead cycle, and you need to prioritize leads for sales. But in this particular environment, the opposite is true. So before I begin, I want to talk about 2 things. I'm going to be talking about managing to quantity and improving quality. So on quantity, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I figure out how many leads I need. I use a very simple formula. First, I look at what the business unit goals are, and then I multiply that times the sales tied to leads. So historically, how many of the units that are driven for the business are delivered from direct marketing from my team. And then I divide by the conversion rate to back into how many leads I need. After doing that, I actually subtract out our ambient leads that are coming from our website. So for 2 reasons. One, it helps me understand how many paid leads I'll need to get, so how much CPA, direct mail, et cetera, that I need to invest in. But the other reason is I want to optimize my website traffic so I get the maximum number of leads from ambient traffic. So, making sure that you've got as many lead forms as you can on your site, that you're pushing up trials, and anything you can do to really increase interest in your product. This next slide is just really talking about how we manage ongoing, and I'm sure all of you are doing this. But after I create my plan, I basically create dashboards that I can use to measure our lead volume, our conversions, our cost per leads, and our ROI. And I basically look at the lead volumes weekly, and I now can look at my conversion rate weekly, and I can see, and I'll go into a management meeting, and I'll understand that if the units and revenue are off in a certain region or territory, I can look to see, A, do they have enough leads, and if not, I'll talk to the marketing manager in that region. B, do they have enough leads, and are they contacting those leads? And C, what's our conversion rate looking? So potentially a campaign that we might have pushed in a particular region just isn't working. Now I want to talk to you a little bit about quality. There are a lot of articles and research on overcomplicated scoring models and lead nurture programs. And my personal advice to you, or at least what's worked for me, is just to keep it simple. And I say this because about a year ago, we were deploying a new CRM system, and we needed to set up our lead scores and get the system all set inside. And we had a sister business unit that actually deployed the CRM system before us, and they used a really complicated model and took forever to get into market, and they didn't really find that it gave any lift in results. So when we were going to market with our CRM system, we decided to take a really simple approach. And that's why I use this, if you've ever heard of KISS, keep it simple, stupid. I think it's sort of important in marketing, as in business, that, generally 20% drives 80% of the volume. So think of the simple things you can do that are going to drive the greatest revenue. So I want to tell you a little bit about how we scored our leads and what the results were. First, before we deployed this worldwide lead score model, we looked at past conversion rates to know what were the hottest leads. And right off the bat, those were trials and cart abandons and contact us. Those were the hottest leads, so we made sure that those got into sales. And then we looked at research in the industry about explicit information that you can ask to make sure that you can score leads appropriately. And by there, we just went on a hunch that time frame to purchase would be an important thing to score on. So if people said they were going to purchase immediately, we put those into A. If they were going to purchase within, 1 to 3 months, or 4 to 6 or 12 months, we put them into B. And if they were just researching, we put them into D, and we actually didn't pass those leads to sales. The last thing we did, which potentially not all companies are doing, is we reserve the C lead category for our customer base, and we actually take customers before they're up for renewal, and we load them as leads to sales. And the reason is that we find that we can, people's needs grow and change between their renewal periods, and there may be times when they have additional servers and they need to sell additional certificates, and that's when we can sell more to those customers. So that's just another thing that you can do. Turns out this model worked very well. We were pretty much spot on most things. The interesting thing we found is that the D leads, which we put into research only, actually performed 30% higher than those that said they were going to purchase in about 4 to 12 months. So that's something that we didn't know was going to happen, and we have since changed up our scoring system, so we're passing those leads to sales, and I'm estimating we can make potentially an extra $1 million in revenue per year. So my finding here is it's important to keep things simple, but also monitor and test, because sometimes your hypotheses can be wrong. So the next story I'm going to tell you about is a story on, honestly, what not to do. And for that story, that has to do with simplicity and lead nurture. And I want to tell you, before we went on with our new CRM system, we tested and deployed a very simple lead nurture program that had 3 paths, really mostly trying to drive trials, because we knew that those were our hot leads, and we are also trying to nurture leads. And we found that this really simple lead nurture program had the same results as our one-off autoresponders, for which we had thousands in the system. So we made the decision that this is great. We can, rather than manually port over all those autoresponders, we can set up a lead nurture system in our new system. Well, here's where we went a little wrong. We started with a very simple lead nurture program, and then we got overly complex, as you can see on this chart. And there's several lanes, several criteria, and we built such a complex lead nurture system that we weren't actually able to deploy it, and it basically took us about 3 quarters to get it to market. So my lesson here is, sometimes, again, stick to the 80-20 rule and focus on simplicity. And I'm happy to say that we've since scaled back our lead nurture program, and we're going to market with a good trigger-based program, and these are some examples of that program. So in wrapping up, I wanted to tell you some key messages that I learned from. The first is, don't boil the ocean. As I mentioned throughout the presentation, focus on the 20% that can drive 80% of the business. So, for example, our really simple lead score model and focusing on trials and cart abandons was really important in trying to go for the overblown lead nurture program. Trying to run before we were walking just didn't seem to work out. I didn't touch too much on this, but the next point I had is standardize and simplify, but plan for flexibility. And basically what I mean there is, prior to launching our CRM system, we had different rules all over the country, different CRM systems. And so I was excited to have one scoring model, and I wanted to keep everything standard. And I did do that, and I'm glad I did that, because we're able to understand conversion rates worldwide. But in doing that, we also built some rigidity into our landing pages that were hard-coded and hard to change and test. So we're fixing that now. But just if you're going to market with a new CRM system, make sure you build flexibility into the requirements. The next thing is to trust your gut, but check it. For example, we were right about trials and contact us and purchase intent driving sales. Actually, those leads are about 38% higher than average in conversion rate, but I never would have guessed that people who said they were researching actually convert at 30 to 40% higher than average. So it's just always good to test, which I'm sure all of you on the phone know. And the last point, if you are in a competitive market and a short sales cycle, make sure to pass those leads. We've been shown that a sales call can help increase conversion by 2.5 times. So it's really important to get those leads to sales. The next thing I just want to quickly talk about that David and I wanted to touch on, because a lot of business is moving more and more online, and actually we're still doing some of our marketing offline and some of our marketing online, and I wanted to explain, why we're doing that and what some of our best practices are. There's basically 4 reasons. The first reason is you've got to look at your target. And at my company, we have a tool called Strategic Oxygen, which helps us tell by target what medium works during what point in the sales cycle. And as it turns out, even at awareness stage, IT buyers actually are still reading print, and they're still going to print. So it's important that you're there at every point of interaction with them. The other reason is, sometimes the best leads are offline and online. So, we do get a fair amount of good leads from direct mail and sometimes specific shows. And the third point I wanted to mention is lead quality changes over time. So several years ago, email just wasn't working for us, and direct mail was working great. So we moved a lot to direct mail. And then about 2 years ago, we decided to test in email marketing again with the concept that David mentioned early about a survey program. And now that's our control piece. So, you've constantly got to be testing all your channels so you can find the next big win. And the next thing I want to do is just show you a couple examples. This is an example of a hard copy mail package that we do. We've tested the blind OEs and the craft envelope. And also the next one I wanted to show you is this is an example of our email survey program. And then finally, I want to talk to you just about some other things that we've done and tried. And those are, we've done everything from white paper sponsorships, webcasts, virtual trade shows, banner buys, even social media. And I know that social media is all the rage and all the buzz out there. And I'm very excited to hear from folks who have really been able to capitalize on it. For us, we found that, webcasts, virtual trade shows, direct mail, email, those really, really work really well. Social media, at this point in time, we did do a viral marketing campaign on No More Abandoned Shopping Carts. And, it was great in generating a lot of buzz. I think we got something like almost 1 million hits on YouTube the first day, and we got several press mentions. But we didn't really actually get any sales from that. So in terms of direct marketing, demand generation, and driving leads and sales, we actually haven't found social media to be working for us. But, again, we're always testing new things. And with that, I'd like to pass it back over to David on more strategies to boost performance. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tara. That was great. I think that was a great example of how you use different channels, bring in both quality and quantity of leads. And also I love the whole concept of keeping it simple. I think that we can certainly apply that to a lot of what we do. And what I'll actually take you through in the next few minutes that we have left is a few of the bonus strategies that will also help you maximize your quality and quantity of leads. And you will definitely see that concept of keeping it simple tied into some of what I'm going to show you. So this first slide, this first strategy is to sell your offer like the merchants of Venice. And as you can see from this picture was actually taken in Venice, and this is, in fact, a merchant. And one of the things that we can't stress enough is that you cannot forget to sell your offer. So it sounds really simple, right? But it's our job to tell our prospects what they're going to learn, gain, discover, reveal, and take away. We need to motivate their behavior. We need to create that value, and we need to give them a desire and a reason to respond. So there's lots of different ways to do it, but what I think people often forget when they're doing their campaigns is we may understand exactly what it is we're offering, but we've got to speak in such a language so that our prospects also understand what we're saying and they can apply it to their own businesses. Because if they can't apply it to their own business and they don't see the benefits pretty immediately, then you're going to lose them on that touch point. And that said, a unique offer, well merchandised, will help us deliver the best results. So all great writing teachers always teach us to be very specific, that by being specific, you're going to engage the reader. Sort of what I was just saying about talking about the benefits, telling them what they're going to get, what we're going to reveal to them. And by showing the specifics, we can be relevant to the target that we're trying to hit. So it's not always the same message to each different target. But in this example, we are very, very specific. We whet the appetite. We create a desire to respond now by not leaving things to the imagination. So this was an actual campaign that went to very high-level prospects. different industries, and also different job titles. So if you're hitting a financial target, you might be saying something different than when you're hitting a marketing target. But what we were offering here was this report that would show them how their business compares to other businesses in the industry. And as you can see, we use these call-outs that really described exactly what it is we're going to give them. We tried not to leave very much to the imagination, so to get someone to respond, they actually knew exactly what it was what they were responding for. So in this slide, it shows you how high-performance results can come from tapping into the B2B purchase behavior. B2B buyers are looking to solve problems, and they have a very common buying pattern. So regardless of really what kind of industry you're in, what you're selling, of course, there's different lengths of the buy cycle, as Tara touched upon, but for the most part, the buying pattern is pretty similar. So we've got to be sure that we've structured our marketing efforts to align with this process. As you know, there's milestones in the purchase process, and we've got to make sure that what we're doing at each of those stages is going to help bring those prospects through the funnel, to engage them, to give them the information they need when they're asking for it. And conversely, we've got to match our sales process with the buying journey and be clear on exactly what we want the prospects to know about our company or our product or what we're selling at each stage of that cycle. So what do we do to make this happen? We have to look at each of these steps and figure out if we have the right offers for the buyers at each of these specific steps. So, if you look at this chart, we look at the prospect's journey. So, for example, when a prospect's unaware, has no idea really what they want, what we've got to do is, worry a little bit about the positioning, different target markets, and we have to convince them that our company is one of the firms that they need to look at and that we've helped others like theirs through this same issue and same challenge. And you can see if you go through the prospect's journey all the way down to engagement, we have to align our sales process to meet with that journey, and then we have to give them what they need at each of those stages. So here it just shows you again how we need to align our offers to each stage of the buy cycle. So we need to actually code our offers by buy cycle stage. It's a really important step that will enable us to read our prospects' digital body language, at each of these stages. So when you're talking about the interest stage, our job as marketers is really to create demand. As you move a little bit further into the consideration stage, that's where we're actually generating leads, figuring out which of those leads are actually hot, which ones maybe get some nurture. So then we move into evaluation, and there we're really managing these leads, because depending on your buy cycle, if you're on a short buy cycle, then your lead management is going to have to happen pretty quickly. You score them, you send them out to sales, they call pretty immediately, and hopefully close those sales. On other cases where we're talking about a longer buy cycle, more expensive products, something that's affecting different departments, there our evaluation stage may actually be longer, and we may have to develop many touches in that lead management before anything goes through to the sales. And, that's obviously going to depend on what your product is, what you're selling, and what the buy cycle is of your prospect. So here, just tried to outline for you what our funnel looks like, right? So at the top of the funnel, we really just start with our addressable universe. We have our suspects, who we think are our targets. And then what oftentimes marketers get confused about is something that's a response is not necessarily a lead. So some of you on the phone probably use different terms, your marketing qualified lead, your sales qualified lead. What's important here is to know that you've got responses that may not actually be qualified. So when you're addressing the interest stage as opposed to the consideration stage or evaluation stage, you've got to offer different things to get people to actually respond. So there's third-party white papers, trend studies, media-sponsored seminars. Those are things that in the interest stage are going to help people determine whether they even are in need of your product or your service and turn them into a more qualified prospect that then can become more of a marketing qualified lead, where we might send them different types of white papers, some sort of, podcasts, webinars, things like that. And then when they're at the evaluation stage, that's where we have to get them templates that can help them to actually see what their ROI will be. We have to explain to them how the RFP process works. So as you can see, by the time you get down to the closing stage, these folks know who we are. We're going to talk to them in a very different way. We're going to show them examples of our current customers. We're going to actually do site visits. We'll be willing to spend a little more money once you get down further in that buy cycle. I thought this was a really, really interesting chart. It's B2B buyers basically don't want content, and most marketers think that they do. So B2B buyers don't actually always want what we as marketers think that they want. So the question is, how do I create content that the buyers want as opposed to what I or my bosses think that they want? I mean, how many times are we sitting in meetings where we say, oh, these prospects definitely need X, whereas in fact what they're telling us is that they want Y. So if you look at this chart, on the left-hand side, we have the marketer. On the right-hand side, we have the prospective buyer. And all of these things are actually, they want in some degree, but it's the degree that we think they want them versus how much they really want. So we think that, if we give them all a lot of educational content, that they're going to be really thrilled, whereas educational content is really number 4 on the prospective buyers list, and news and articles actually moves all the way up to number 1, whereas we looked at news and articles as like number 6. So again, we need to really try to get into their heads and understand what they're looking for, and a lot of this, again, has to do with aligning ourselves to the buy cycle, looking at what each of their needs are at the various stages of the buy cycle, and then going from there. This next strategy explains how you can use a content library to attract and nurture a wide range of buyers. So as you heard me saying earlier, your buyers may be within different departments, but they all may play a role in the actual buy cycle and in the decision as to whether your product or service is going to be something that they end up signing off on. So we sort of divided up into different types of buyers and then different stages of the buy cycle. And what you need to do is use a content library to attract and nurture these wide range of buyers. You've got to be sure that you have the offers for the various types of buyers against the 3 major buy cycle stages. So we've got our influencers, right? And in a lot of industries or a lot of products and services that we're selling, the influencer plays a huge role. That's the person or the people within the department that are going to go to their boss and say, this is going to help me do my job better. So we've got to actually explain to them why they need to become advocates for what it is we're trying to sell in. Then you've got your economic or strategic buyers, and here, these are the people that are probably signing off. So you've got your CFO, you've got your COO. They're looking for third-party research. They want to understand things that are happening in the industry events, proof cases of similar situations, and they're always going to care more about what the ROI is. So not just how it helps me on a day-to-day basis, but how that ROI plays a role. And then you've got your technical buyers, right? And these are the ones that are really more concerned with, am I going to have downtime? How am I going to get this into market? Am I going to be able to rip and replace, or is this something that's going to be a staged approach? So here we've got to have technical issues seminars and explain to them the deployment studies and all those technical issues that they need to consider before they can implement either our product or service. On this next slide, I just wanted to show you a before and after of how a microsite data capture site might look from any sort of a campaign. So we need to get rid of the friction. What that means is that we need to eliminate all unnecessary steps to registrations. That will help us maximize our quantity. So if you look here, you can see this is a 2-step approach. It's a 2-page registration process. It's got a long registration form. You've got to scroll down to the submit button. Now, the reg page is actually pre-populated. That is a best practice, so at least that's working. But the prospect, we like them to answer at least a couple of questions. But in this case, this is really cumbersome, and it makes people do a lot of work before they ever click submit. So on this next one, which actually increased conversions by over 50%, this is just a quick, short reg page. It's 1 page. It asks just for the really pertinent information that we need, And then we'll touch them again and get more of the information that we need later once we've seen if these folks are qualified. I mean, we can look at their name, we've got their phone number, we can send them emails, and it really just allows us to present it in a one-page, really, really streamlined approach. And then this last strategy that I wanted to share with you was a strategy which is using video. Video is one of the most powerful and proven mediums. It engages viewers, boosts conversion rates, and when it's used on landing pages, we've actually seen it lift conversion by 21 to 28%. And what you see here is a pretty simple knowledge center or a resource center. It's got its different sections, but when a visitor actually comes to this place and they click, this woman pops up. She starts introducing to you what the different sections are. You can also add live chat, which helps quite a bit. But what we've seen is that this can really, really increase your conversion by, in some cases, up to 50%. So with those 7 quick strategies that I just showed you, you can hopefully use those and put those into some of your programs pretty immediately. And please feel free to connect with us. We've got a bunch of free guides out there on this lead farm. We actually have a white paper. We've got offer strategy white papers. Visit our website. You can follow us on Twitter or on Facebook. And I believe we've got at least about 10 more minutes left that we can answer a few questions. So we'll just go ahead and look at the Q&A and see what questions were asked, and we will go from there. Okay, well, thank you, everyone, for sending in these questions. And if we don't get to all of them today, we'll probably only have time for a few of them. Please feel free to send any follow-up via email, and we'll be happy to answer them. So the first question we've got here is, what are the most significant changes you see in offer strategy that can dramatically affect response? So what I would say for that one, and this sort of goes back to a couple of the slides that we just went through, really, to me, the most important piece here is aligning to your buyer's journey. So I think the offer plays a huge role in understanding what it is your prospect is looking for and what questions they are going to ask and being proactive. So a big part of that is really creating that offer library. You've got to have the offer library. You have to have it broken down by the different types of buyer. And then when you're creating your offers, you've got to use different tactics to really keep these folks interested. So video is a big one. Looking at streamlined pages like what we just showed so that you can capture the response really quickly and not make the prospect do too much work. And then also try to use your social media as much as you can. So if you've got offers and word of mouth spreads and people talk about them, that's always really helpful as well. But the only other thing I'll leave you with is that the type of offer really is going to depend on how worthwhile this buyer is. So if they're just at the beginning stages, you may give them something to respond, but as they get closer to purchase and as they get hotter, you're going to want to equip your sales reps with the tools that they need to try to close this sale. And sometimes that's going to take offering something that's a little more meaty and worth a little bit more money. Okay, let's see. We've got a couple more questions. Second question, can you elaborate on why you still include direct mail as part of your campaigns? Isn't it expensive? And does this channel still produce quality leads? So I think I'll turn it over to Tara to answer the question, but I just want to throw something out real quickly just about the expense part of this question. I think people often think that direct mail is really, really expensive, but it obviously is going to depend on your quantity. It's going to depend on your audience. It's going to depend on your frequency. And also, there's creative ways within production to do pieces that are not that expensive. You're always going to have your postal expense, but there's also different ways to mail. You don't always mail first class. There's bulk mail. There's also ways to, sort your mail for savings. And there's a lot of creative ways that you can do that in today's day and age. And Tara, do you want to answer the other part of that question about direct mail?
Yeah, absolutely, David. There's a couple things. One, when you're generating leads, if you tend to use one medium, like let's say you only use email because it's inexpensive, what's going to happen is that medium is going to fatigue. So it's really good to kind of make sure that you're throwing direct mail in the mix. And we've done enough testing where we have a control package where our cost has gone down a lot, as David said. So, we're able to use that in lead generation. But the primary thing we find direct mail very effective is in lead cultivation, actually. And there's a lot of people that do trigger-based email campaigns, which is great. But we've actually found that direct mail to our unconverted leads is actually some of the most effective campaigns that we have.
Great. Let's see. I think we probably have time for a few more questions. The next question, what is the biggest challenge in helping guide your team to deliver consistent success, and how do you overcome it? I think, Tara, from the perspective of being inside of a company, I'll turn that one over to you as well.
Okay, sounds great. For me, being in direct marketing and just marketing in general, the first thing is just start with the goals, make sure the team is clear on what their goals are. The second thing I do is just measure to the numbers. The thing I love about being in direct marketing is you might have a product management or marketing team saying, we need to drive this new initiative, and you can look at the numbers and say, yeah, that works or doesn't work. Third thing is just really being honest with the numbers. If something isn't working, then call a spade a spade. And the last thing is just always be testing, because you never know how you're going to get that next big win. Those are pretty much the things I follow.
Yeah, and I think that's great. I agree with all of that in terms of looking at my clients, and we're always telling them to test and understand the elements that you're actually testing so that, you do have a control group. I think that's been something that I've seen that's been kind of tough, is that when you try to change too many things, then people stop buying in because your company stops buying in because they don't understand if the results you're showing them are really real results. And so I would just add to what Tara was saying is that what I found is that you've got to get corporate buy-in. And one way to do that is to have an actual roadmap, attach your metrics to your roadmap so that, like Tara said, you're accountable for the success of the program. The next question is marketing automation another fad, or is it here to stay? That's a good question. So from my perspective, I hear that question all the time. And what I tell people is the great thing about marketing automation today is that there are so many different systems out there that allow you to do it from a very simple way to sometimes a little more complex, depending on what you need. And you can easily grow into them. So, you might have an investment at the beginning, but then it doesn't require as much monitoring. And I know that my clients have seen really, really great results with the marketing automation. Tara, what are you guys seeing?
I completely agree. We still have our one-off campaigns, and even though our CRM system did take a while to deploy, I love having the automation in place and the real-time reporting. It just really helps me actually understand on a daily, weekly basis how I can actually improve my results. So I absolutely think it's a good win.
Yeah, I agree. So I think we've got time for one more question. I'm just going to have to pick one of these. Great questions, everybody. Okay, how much impact does segmentation of message by audience have on results? And is the effort worth the results? So, Tara, you probably could jump right on that one with all the different audiences you guys are talking to.
Yeah, you know what? I actually, from my personal experience, I think it depends on what you're selling. So today, I sell SSL certificates. I used to work at Intuit and sell products to small businesses. And when we were at Intuit, it really, really mattered because different industries would be more apt to buy different types of products. So the segmentation was really key. In the SSL world, I think segmentation is key in terms of understanding the employee size and the title of the customer, but actual firmographic information in terms of what industry has not been such a driver for us. But I think the really important thing of testing segmentation is it really helps you understand where you focus and where you don't. So if you find that the segmentation really wins, then you can hone in on an industry. If you find that going to that granularity in your initial test doesn't pan out, then maybe, having a broader brush approach works. So I just think you need to understand what you're selling and who you're selling it to and test constantly to know.
Yeah, and I agree 100%. I think it's all about your relevancy. So if you can be relevant across industries or across segments, I've got clients that have tested it many times, and Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I do think if you've got case studies and testimonials and you can easily use really relevant ones for the segment that you're speaking to, then that can also help your campaign success. So on that, I think we are out of time. I just want, on behalf of Tara and myself, I just want to thank you for joining us today. And again, should you have any questions or need any follow-up, please feel free to reach out to us. And everyone have a great day. Thanks so much.